Imagine walking onto a battlefield. You are heavily armored, your adrenaline is just completely pumping, and you are expecting this brutal physical fight.
Right. You are braced for impact.
Exactly. But then the smoke clears, and you look around, and you realize there is no enemy army in front of you.
Nothing there.
Yeah, the opponent isn't a person. It is, well, it's your own mind.
Which is terrifying in its own way.
It really is. And we are doing a deep dive today into a really profound set of philosophical essays. They specifically explore these concepts called the Gate of Turning and the Age of Clarity.
And the way they open is just brilliant.
Yeah, they open with this chilling realization. The text says, the material sword has returned to its sheath.
I mean, that completely reframes the modern human condition right there.
It does, because we still feel like we are at war, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Most of us are totally safe from historical physical threats. I mean, we aren't defending castle walls from invaders anymore.
Right, the stakes are different.
But we are walking around completely drained. We are entirely on the defensive, dealing with this constant low-grade burnout every single day.
Yeah, it feels like we are fighting a relentless battle. But the problem is we're using the wrong weapons because we haven't realized that the battlefield itself has fundamentally shifted.
It has moved inside. It is no longer about conquering physical land at all.
No, the modern battlefield is the human heart and the human intellect. And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive today.
We really want to unpack this.
Yeah, for you listening, if you have ever felt that cynical exhaustion creeping in when you read the news or when you just try to engage in a debate online, we are looking for a roadmap out of that internal chaos.
Because the old roadmap is useless now.
Exactly. We are trying to figure out how to navigate a world where our traditional ways of fixing things they just don't apply anymore.
And I think we have to recognize that putting the material sword away, like these sources describe, that is not a declaration of surrender.
Right. It's not giving up.
Not at all. It is an evolution. When the battlefield moves from the outside to the inside, your entire arsenal has to change with it.
I love that you bring up the arsenal, because trying to use old methods on this new internal battlefield is, well, it's genuinely destructive.
Oh, it makes things so much worse.
It does. It is literally like trying to fix a software bug with a hammer.
Yes. Or trying to perform delicate neurosurgery with a medieval broadsword.
Exactly. Those old ways, like forcing solutions, aggressively arguing our points, just trying to conquer someone else's opinion by sheer volume, it's like hacking away at a problem that requires an entirely different instrument.
You are just going to cause more hemorrhaging.
Right. But this brings up a huge question for me. Because if the broadsword doesn't work, and we see people drifting away from each other, and from any sort of shared meaning...
And they really are drifting.
Yeah, they are. But the text says this isn't necessarily out of denial, but out of distrust. So what is the actual tool we are supposed to be using on this new internal battlefield?
Well, to understand the new tool, we first have to really deeply understand the injury.
Yeah.
Like, why did we drift away in the first place?
Okay, yeah. Why did we?
It is not necessarily out of outright denial or malice, like you said. These essays argue that the root of our modern wounds, the reason people don't see justice, the reason their hearts literally dry out and they become so cynical, is this thing identified as obscurity.
Obscurity.
Yeah.
Not like anger or hatred, just a lack of transparency.
Precisely. Obscurity is the ultimate killer of trust. I mean, think about how we interact today. Intent is almost always unclear.
Oh, totally. Representation is unclear.
Right. We are constantly navigating this massive, unignorable gap between what people say and what they actually do.
You see it everywhere.
You see it in corporate speak, you see it in political rhetoric, you even see it in how people curate their lives on social media.
It is exhausting. You are just constantly trying to decode the hidden agenda behind everything.
Exactly. And that obscurity forces your mind into a defensive posture.
Because you have to protect yourself.
Right. When someone comes at you with force, even if it is just rhetorical violence, like screaming at you in a comment section to prove a point, it immediately closes your heart.
Because you don't trust them.
You don't trust them because their underlying intent is totally obscured by their aggression. So the antidote, the new weapon for this internal age is clarity.
Okay, clarity. I mean, that is a word that gets thrown around in boardrooms and self-help books constantly.
It's become a bit of a buzzword, yeah.
It really has. So how are the sources defining that here? Because it has to be more than just, speaking your mind or being blunt.
Oh, it is much, much deeper than that. Clarity in this framework rests on three specific pillars.
Okay, what are they?
The purity of intention, the precision of measure, and the harmony between word and state.
Wow, the harmony between word and state. Let's unpack that last one because that sounds like the hardest to achieve.
It is incredibly difficult. Harmony between word and state basically means your internal lived reality matches your external claims perfectly.
I have to admit that sounds almost impossible.
It's a high bar.
It is. Purity of intention, harmony of word and state. We are messy, reactive creatures, you know?
We absolutely are.
Like, I can want to be clear, but my ego gets in the way. I want to look smart or I want to win the argument.
Yeah.
How do we actually operationalize that kind of clarity internally?
Well, there is this fascinating concept in the sources about treating the ego or the self as a trust.
A trust. Okay, let me see if I can translate this for the listener because I love analogies.
Go for it.
Imagine someone hands you the keys to a multi-million-dollar sports car.
Right.
Or like a massive estate. It is filled with priceless art and beautiful gardens.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Because you know definitively that you do not own it. You are merely managing it in trust for the true owner. You behave entirely differently inside that house.
That makes sense.
You don't knock down walls. You don't claim you painted the masterpieces. The illusion of ownership is gone, so your ego regarding the house just kind of dissolves.
Right.
Are these sources suggesting we need to view our own intellect, our own talents, our very sense of I as that stranger's estate?
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Yes, exactly that. Clarity begins the exact moment the ego is seen as a trust rather than a possession.
So it's about relinquishing that ownership.
When you realize you don't actually own your faculties,
Yeah.
that your intelligence, your empathy, your energy are just tools temporarily entrusted to you, that aggressive, defensive I steps aside.
Wow.
The desperate need to claim ownership over your ideas just dissolves. And when the ego diminishes, truth naturally expands to fill the space.
That brings up a really fascinating example from the text regarding the phrase Bismillah, which means in the name of God.
Yes, that is a core example here.
The argument is that reading the world with Bismillah is the ultimate act of clarity. Because if you are reading existence or analyzing a problem or engaging in a debate in the name of its true owner, you are actively bypassing your own ego.
Exactly. You are acknowledging the true owner of the estate, to use your analogy. And that fundamentally alters how you interact with others. It even completely redefines how we are supposed to understand justice.
Really? How so? We typically picture justice as like a judge with a gavel, right? A very rigid, punitive balancing of scales.
Right. But here, justice is actually defined as a form of clarity.
Wait, how is justice clarity?
Because justice is described not as harsh rigidity, nor as weak, passive mercy. It is the exact, precise balance where compassion and measure meet.
Compassion and measure.
Think about it. If justice is too harsh, if it lacks compassion, the human heart simply shuts its door.
You just tune it out.
Yeah, you might be technically right, but you've alienated the person entirely. On the flip side, if your compassion lacks measure, if you just let everything slide, truth loses its place.
It becomes meaningless.
Exactly. Clarity is finding that high-wire middle point. It is the ability to speak the absolute truth without wounding the heart and to win the heart without distorting the truth.
That is beautiful.
It is. That precise intersection is where real trust is actually born.
Speaking truth without wounding, winning hearts without distorting truth. I mean, that is the gold standard, isn't it?
It is what we should all be aiming for.
But practically, you know, when we are dealing with our own burnout, our own daily frustrations, how do we calibrate ourselves to find that balance?
That is where the philosophy introduces a specific mechanism to achieve this clarity. It is a concept called turning.
The gate of turning. And I think we need to be very precise here for you listening. Turning isn't just like looking over your shoulder or changing your mind about a topic, is it?
No. It is the fundamental reorientation of your inner compass.
The inner compass.
Yes, it is the active, conscious shifting of your gaze away from the transient, temporary chaos around you and toward the eternal.
Toward what they call the absolute being. And the promise here is incredible.
It really is.
The text argues that when a person genuinely turns their face toward that ultimate reality, what previously looked like total senseless chaos suddenly reveals an underlying order.
Exactly. Because the eye that turns toward that ultimate reality begins to perceive the unseen mechanisms at play.
You start seeing the bigger picture.
You stop staring at the chaotic crashing of the waves right in front of you, and you start looking at the gravitational pull of the moon. causing the tides.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You start to see the wisdom and the mercy behind the events. And crucially, turning gives birth to more turning.
What does that mean, turning gives birth to more turning?
It means wherever you consistently direct your inner compass,
Yeah.
your heart is nourished from that exact source. It becomes a habit of the soul.
This is where it gets incredibly visceral for the listener dealing with real-world exhaustion, because this framework completely reconstructs how we are supposed to experience hardship.
It flips it completely upside down.
It really does. Difficult times, harsh moments, financial ruin, heartbreak, they are not framed as mere trials that you just have to grit your teeth and endure.
No.
They are active opportunities given to correct our direction.
It is a profound psychological inversion. We spend our entire lives chasing comfort, right? But the truth is, a person often disperses in comfort.
Wait, disperses, like losing focus.
Yes. Think of a sailor on a completely calm sea with no wind.
Okay.
The sailor disperses. They get lazy, their tension scatters, their ego inflates because there is no immediate challenge.
Right, they feel like they're in control when they're really just drifting.
Exactly. But when a massive storm hits, hardship gathers that sailor. Every ounce of their attention, their physical strength, their intellect, it's all violently pulled into the present moment.
They have to focus just to survive.
They find their exact center of gravity because they have to. Hardship gathers a person. Helplessness, that feeling of being totally out of control in the storm, purifies the heart.
It strips away that illusion of ownership again.
It strips away the illusion that you are in charge of the ocean. And that helplessness, the sources argue, is what actually refines your prayer.
That makes so much sense, like the universe's GPS just saying, recalculating to fix your inner direction.
That's a perfect analogy.
The storm forces you to realize you don't control the elements, which forces you to turn. But I have to push back here.
Please do.
Because this leads to the most agonizing part of the human experience. Let's say you are in the storm. You do the turning. You realize you don't control the estate. You let go of your ego, you pray for help, and the circumstances still do not change.
That is the hard reality for so many people.
The illness doesn't go away. The financial ruin still happens. The relationship still breaks. We rely so heavily on causes, right? The physical steps we take to fix things. But if we reach out beyond those causes, and the external world still crushes us, what then?
That is the ultimate friction point of faith and philosophy. What do you do when the physical reality does not yield?
Right, because it doesn't always yield.
What is beautiful about this framework is that it doesn't insult our intelligence by promising a magic wand. It doesn't say, turn your compass and you will win the lottery or you'll be cured instantly.
So what does it do?
It redefines the very purpose of the plea. Prayer, in this context, is essentially the soul saying, I am not sufficient, you are sufficient.
Wow.
And the moment you genuinely internalize that, something structural changes within you.
But the storm is still raging.
The storm is still raging. But the text outlines the internal shift. It says, perhaps the circumstances do not change immediately, but the inner balance does.
Okay.
Perhaps the external problem is not solved, but the heart somehow moves toward tranquility anyway. Perhaps no physical door opens, but hope begins to grow again.
So the metric for a successful turning isn't that the universe suddenly bows to your wishes and fixes your life. The metric is entirely your internal landscape.
Precisely. You are being invited into a trust that exists entirely beyond causes.
Beyond causes.
Think about it. When you rely entirely on causes, meaning I will only be happy if X happens, your peace is incredibly fragile.
Because if X doesn't happen, you're destroyed.
If the cause fails, you shatter. But if you trust beyond the causes, if your anger is tied to the absolute rather than the transient outcome, that becomes the firmest possible ground for the heart.
That is so powerful.
Prayer ceases to be a transaction where you put in a request and demand a specific shipment in return. It becomes an ascent. It becomes a state of nearness.
Nearness.
Yeah.
That word is the absolute heartbeat of the second half of these essays.
It really is.
And what fascinated me is how this idea of nearness ties directly into how we use our minds. It leads to this concept of the prayer of thought.
Such a unique concept.
This blew me away because we are so conditioned to separate the intellect from spirituality.
We always put them in two different boxes.
Always. We think prayer is this soft, emotional thing for the heart, and thought is this cold, calculating thing for the brain. But the argument here is that they must merge. It asks for a thought filled with mercy, a thought that carries the scent of prostration.
That phrase, the scent of prostration, is an incredible critique of modern intellectual arrogance.
It is such a wild phrase. What does it actually mean?
Well, think about what physical prostration is. It is taking the highest, most dignified part of your body, your head, your face, and placing it on the lowest possible ground, the dust.
The ultimate posture of submission.
Right. It is the ultimate physical manifestation of humility. So, what does it mean for a thought to carry the scent of prostration?
It means the mind is bowing to.
Yes. It means an intellect that knows its own limits. An intellect that bows to a higher truth, rather than an intellect that struts around trying to dominate everyone else in the room.
And we see the exact opposite of that everywhere. For you listening, think about how often we consume information just to stockpile ammunition.
Oh, constantly. We treat knowledge like bullets.
We do. We read articles, we listen to deep dives, we memorize statistics purely because we want to be the smartest person at the dinner table.
We want to win the argument in the comments section.
We want the applause. But this philosophy comes with a severe warning about that. It calls it corrupted thought.
Because thought can be easily tainted by that ego we talked about earlier. And it is not just tainted by getting the facts wrong. A thought is corrupted by the pride driving it.
Even if it's true.
Even if it's true. When a person isn't actually seeking truth, but rather seeking superiority, their intellect becomes a weapon of distance, not a tool of clarity.
The insight that stopped me cold was this. A corrupted thought might even be technically, factually correct, but it cannot heal.
That is the crux of the entire philosophy, right?
It just blew my mind.
If your goal is just to dazzle people or demand brilliance for the sake of your own ego, the thought elevates its owner, but it buries the truth.
Wow.
That is exactly why the text pleads for an entirely different metric for learning. The plea is, my Lord, make my thought as pure as nearness to you.
How does that metric of nearness change the way we process information, like day to day?
It shifts the value from complexity to direction. If we say a thought must be as pure as nearness, we're saying the value of an idea isn't how complicated it is, or how many syllables it has, or how much it proves someone else wrong.
So what is the value?
The only question that matters is, does this thought bring you closer to ultimate truth, to humility, to your creator? Or does it distance you?
It's a directional metric.
Exactly. If a thought fills you with arrogance and distances you from compassion, no matter how factually brilliant it seems, it is clouded. It is a fundamental failure of clarity.
So true intelligence isn't about dazzling the room. It is an intellect that knows how to bow. Grant me intellect, but make my intellect bow.
That is the ultimate goal.
That really forces you to hold up a mirror. Why are you learning what you are learning right now? Are you engaging with the world to win, or are you engaging to heal your own internal obscurity?
And that circles us perfectly back to where we began. The material sword is returned to its sheath.
But there's another sword.
Yes. The intellectual sword, that burning desire to intellectually dominate others, to wield our knowledge like a weapon, that sword must also be returned to its sheath.
That is the only way we stop the hemorrhaging.
It is the only way to establish an actual age of clarity.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We started today talking about that overwhelming modern burnout. The cynicism, the exhaustion, the constant feeling of being under attack.
The internal battlefield.
Exactly. We discovered that because the battlefield is now internal, the true weapon isn't force, it is clarity.
And clarity means finding that balance.
Right. Achieving that incredibly delicate balance of compassion and precise measure, ensuring our internal state actually matches our external words.
That harmony between word and state.
Then we talked about how to survive the storm by reorienting our inner compass. By turning and recognizing that hardship isn't a punishment, but a force that gathers us when we have dispersed in comfort.
Finding your center of gravity.
We learned that true prayer is admitting our helplessness and finding peace even when external causes fail. And finally, we saw that our intellect itself must learn to prostrate, prioritizing nearness and healing over the ego-driven desire to be right.
It is a profound, total paradigm shift. It really requires us to completely dismantle how we process our reality and our own egos.
It really is the ultimate rewiring. So the next time you face a harsh moment or you feel that urge to engage in a toxic debate online or in person, I want you to evaluate your own turning.
Notice where your compass is pointing.
Are you scattering in frustration, swinging that old broadsword around? Or are you gathering yourself to find your center of gravity?
That is the big question.
And I want to leave you with one final lingering idea to chew on today. We talked about treating our ego and our talents as a sacred trust, like managing a stranger's estate.
Right.
But if we take this philosophy to its absolute limit, what if we started treating our deepest moments of doubt as a sacred trust too?
Oh, that is an interesting thought.
We always think of our beliefs as the things that connect us to the truth. But what if your uncertainties, the dark questions that keep you up at night, are actually an invitation?
An invitation to turn.
If every moment of helplessness is designed to refine our internal compass, could the times you feel most skeptical, most intellectually lost, and most exhausted by the world actually be the exact starting point of your most profound and pure turning?
It changes everything about how we view being lost.
Next time you feel like you are fighting that invisible, exhausting battle inside your own mind, remember, the sword is obsolete. It is time to use clarity.